All right, let's talk about an empire that for over 600 years stood at the absolute crossroads of the world. A military and cultural powerhouse that fundamentally shaped history. This is the epic story of the Ottoman Empire.
And that really is the big question, isn't it? How on earth does a small band of warriors, starting from pretty much nothing, manage to build one of the most powerful and long-lasting empires in human history? Well, it all boils down to a wild mix of intense religious belief, cutting-edge military tactics, and a real knack for taking the best ideas from everyone they met.
You know, sometimes to understand how a story begins, you've got to look at the end. Just look at this. This is the incredible Mosque of Suleiman in Istanbul. It's a testament to the sheer power and beauty the Ottomans would one day achieve. But to see how they got here, we have to go all the way back to the start.
Okay, so let's rewind the clock. We're in 14th century Anatolia. That's modern-day Turkey. The old empires, like the Byzantines, are starting to crumble, leaving this huge power vacuum. And right into that gap, a brand new force begins to emerge.
And just look at this map. Location, 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 right? Anatolia was perfectly placed. It was squeezed right between the fading Christian Byzantine Empire in the west and the powerful Muslim world in the east. It was the perfect launch pad for anyone bold enough to make a move.
And the people who made that move were the Ghazis. Now, these guys weren't your average soldiers. They were warriors for Islam. They had this strict code of conduct, and they saw every single battle as part of a holy mission. That combination of faith and fighting skill, it made them an incredibly motivated and seriously scary force. The most successful of all these Ghazi chiefs was a man named Osman. And Osman was much more than just a warrior. He was a brilliant strategist. He knew you don't build an empire with swords alone. He bought up land, he made alliances, and piece by piece, he started putting together the building blocks of what his followers, the Ottomans, would turn into an empire.
So the Ottoman state is growing bigger and stronger. But there was one legendary prize that was always just out of reach: the city of Constantinople. For 1,000 years, it was thought to be unconquerable. But for the new, young sultan, it was more than a prize. It was an obsession.
By the middle of the 1400s, Constantinople, this jewel of an ancient empire, was really just a shadow of its former self. I mean, get this. Its population had crashed from over 1 million people down to just 50,000. It was this hollowed-out symbol, basically ripe for the picking.
And the man who stepped up to the challenge was Mehmed II. This kid takes the throne at just 21 years old, and he is laser-focused on one single goal. He truly believed it was his destiny to take that city. So in 1453, he makes his move. Mehmed's army brought the latest, greatest military technology of the day. We're talking massive cannons that hurled gigantic cannonballs at the city's ancient walls. It was a true clash of the old world against the new.
But those defenses were tough, especially at sea. There was a huge iron chain blocking the Ottoman navy from getting into the main harbor. So Mehmed did something absolutely bonkers, one of the wildest moves in military history. He had his men haul 70 ships overland on greased logs, up a hill, and down into the water on the other side of the chain. It was totally audacious, and nobody saw it coming.
After 7 brutal weeks, the city's walls were breached, and it finally fell. Mehmed, now known forever as the Conqueror, didn't just sack the city. He did something smarter. He renamed it Istanbul and threw open the gates, inviting people of all religions, Christians, Jews, Muslims, to come back and help him build a new, vibrant, global capital. Taking Constantinople was a massive turning point. It made the Ottomans a true world power. But the empire's golden age, its absolute peak, oh, that was still to come, under a ruler whose very name meant greatness, Suleiman.
You know what's so fascinating about Suleiman is that he had 2 different nicknames, and they tell you everything you need to know about his rule. In his own empire, he was known as the lawgiver. He completely rewrote the legal code and made the government run like a well-oiled machine. But in Europe, they just called him the Magnificent because they were just in awe of the incredible art, architecture, and culture that flourished under his reign.
So how did he manage this huge state so effectively? Well, one of his most important tools was something called the Dev-Shirme system. Now, this was a system of ruthless efficiency. The Sultan's army would draft boys from Christian families in the lands they conquered, bring them to the palace, convert them to Islam, and train them to be elite soldiers or top government officials. It was a brutal practice. But from the Sultan's point of view, it was genius. It created a class of leaders who were loyal to him and him alone.
And here's another key to their long success: the millet system. At a time when Europe was literally tearing itself apart in brutal religious wars, the Ottomans basically said, look, you can keep your religion, you can follow your own laws, just pay your taxes and don't cause trouble. This practical approach kept the peace in a hugely diverse empire, and it was honestly revolutionary for its time.
For 46 years, Suleiman ruled over the Ottoman Empire at its absolute zenith. He was, without a doubt, their greatest leader. And yet, and this is the incredible irony of the story, a single tragic decision that he made would be the very thing that started the empire on its long, slow road to ruin. And isn't that so often the case in history? The very moment of an empire's greatest success often contains the seeds of its own destruction. And the Ottoman Empire is a textbook example of this paradox.
Fearing a plot to overthrow him, Suleiman made a devastating choice. He had his most talented and capable son executed. He exiled another. This left the throne to his third son, Selim II, who was, well, he was not ready for the job. This deeply personal decision had catastrophic consequences for the entire empire.
And what followed was this destructive pattern that would repeat for generations. To prevent civil wars over the throne, each new sultan would have his brothers locked away or killed. Then, fearing his own sons, he'd keep them isolated inside the palace, completely cut off from the real world. So you ended up with a long line of heirs to the throne who had zero education, zero training, and no idea how to actually run an empire.
And so, the very leader who brought the Ottoman Empire to its most glorious height also planted the seeds of its slow, centuries-long decay. It's such a powerful, timeless lesson about power and its consequences. And it really leaves you with a final thought, doesn't it? Can any system, no matter how powerful or brilliant, ever truly be safe from the very human flaws of its leaders?